Welcome back from Thanksgiving break. I hope everyone had a great meal with their family and loved ones. It's now December, and you know what that means, Ethan.
I do, Bobby. It is the best time of the year for college sports. College basketball season is getting underway, and we have the dramatic finish to an excellent college football season. Coverage of both of those up next on Ohio Sports Zone.
Welcome into Ohio Sports Zone. I'm Bobby Levine alongside Ethan Graham. This is the last episode before winter break. We're going to start things off in the basketball quarter. The men's team went 2-0 during Thanksgiving break. They had the biggest win of the non-conference schedule against Georgia Tech. They lost earlier this week to Marshall of a score of 88-98 in Huntington. But going back to Thanksgiving break, you want to talk about the Georgia Tech game and how big that was for Ohio.
Yeah, it was a 67-61 win for the Bobcats. It was their first win against an ACC school since they beat Maryland in 2007. Antonio Campbell had a huge game. He scored the first 8 points of this game, ended up with 25 overall, 10 of 17 with 3 3-pointers for his first double-double of the season. Deron Simmons also had a good game, 17 and 9, an assist short of a double-double. Kenny Kaminsky started slow to the season, really figured it out in this game, hit 5 threes. Those three, Kaminsky, Simmons, and Campbell, will combine for 57 of the 67 Bobcat points. Last time on the show, we talked about how Ben Lammers, a 7-foot center for Georgia Tech, was going to be a challenge for the Bobcats. Well, they did let him get some points. He did score 22, got 11 boards, but the Bobcats were able to hold the rest of the Yellow Jackets in check and come away with a victory. Their next game, Tennessee Tech, 68-57 win. A huge game defensively. They held Tennessee Tech to 40% shooting, despite not having their best game on the offensive side of the ball, shooting only 37%. Jordan Dardis led the scoring in this game, 22, including 6 of 12 from 3. Jordan Dardis not afraid to let that 3-ball fly. Ohio did suffer their first loss of the season last night against Marshall, a 98-88 shootout loss. Marshall coming off of a 41-point loss to Ohio State up Route 33, outshot the Bobcats 48% to 41% and 40% to 31% from the three-point line. It was their best shooting performance by a Bobcat opponent so far early in the season. It was Ohio's first loss in Huntington since 2008. It was a close game throughout. Ohio was down just 42 to 38 heading into the second half, and Ohio would continue to lead, and they would get the lead back in the second half with 13:29 left. Marshall, however, would go on a 21-9 run to seal the deal. Another huge game individually for Antonio Campbell, 31 rebounds, 31 points. 31 rebounds would be quite a lot. 31 points, 16 rebounds. And Deron Simmons led the game in assists with 7. Bobby, 37 of 39 of Deron Simmons' games at Ohio University, he has led the team in assists. Certainly an impressive distribution game for Deron Simmons.
A couple more stats here. Dardis had 16 points himself, and Kenny Kaminsky, even with the bum shoulder, had 13 points. Now, looking forward, as you said, Antonio Campbell had 31 points. A monster game from him down low. Who was most impressed you? Was it him?
Yeah, well, certainly Antonio Campbell has been impressive. Obviously doing exactly what you expect for him, carrying this team at times. But Jason Carter, coming off the bench, has really impressed me. He's a freshman. He's a 6'7" forward with good size. Really didn't know what his role would be coming into this year, but he's played great. He's 6 points, 5 rebounds, and is nearly a steal and a block per game. Really stuffing that stat sheet off the bench. He looks composed. Looks like he's already been here for 2 or 3 years. Really fits well into Saul's system. And says after the Tennessee game where he scored, Tennessee Tech's game where he scored a career high 17 points. He really talked about how he didn't feel any pressure. He's just letting it fly when he's open and really not having to force anything. And so that's really good to hear from a young guy, and that really speaks to the culture of the Ohio Bobcats men's basketball program that Saul Phillips has built.
Now, with this being the last episode before break, talk about some key big games over the winter break and moving into conference play.
Yeah, on December 3rd, if you're in Athens, make sure and try and get out to the Convo. The Bobcats host Bryant, who is led by former Bobcats head coach Tim O'Shea, who coached the Bobcats from 2001 to 2008, including a tournament appearance in 2005. They go at Iona a week from then on the 10th, who was a tournament team from last year, and January 6th, the MAC opener on ESPNU. It's a 9 p.m. game. Should be a great atmosphere. Great matchup between Antonio Campbell and Jimmy Hall, who averages 19 and 10, so another dominant center in the MAC. Transitioning over to the women's game, Bobby, a 73-52 win for Ohio over Middle Tennessee State. A statistically fascinating game, Bobby. What happened?
Yeah, it's going to be crazy stats thrown your way right now. Here's one, turnover battle. Ohio University won the turnover battle. 26 turnovers committed by Tennessee State, and Middle Tennessee State, excuse me. 9 of them committed by their point guard, and Ohio only committed 11 of them. OU was out-rebound, though, 43-25. They still won the game by 21 points. I don't think I've ever seen a stat like that in my life in college basketball. There's men or women's. Huge game from Jasmine Weatherspoon. Congrats to her brother, though, J.D. Weatherspoon, who played at Ohio State for a little bit. Then Toledo up in the MAC. He finally getting his chance overseas. It was a huge thing in Columbus, being from Columbus to Northland, Columbus City product, going overseas this week. Jasmine Weatherspoon had 17 points. She shot 5 of 9 from behind the arc. Congrats to her on performing outstanding. And Hannah Bosinger, 12 points from her coming off the bench. Got to tip your hat to the Bobcats for that win.
No, certainly you do, but it might be challenging for Ohio to sustain that kind of getting out rebounded and coming away with a win. Is that a concern for you moving forward with this team, Bobby?
We talked about that earlier this season here on Ohio Sports Zone, with just how lack of down low presence they have. Jasmine Weatherspoon being your center is shooting 9 times from behind the arc. Kind of a weird thing to say, but moving forward, hopefully Bob Bowden gets his girls together. They need to out rebound the team. Somehow find a way. It hasn't happened in a long time. We'll move forward and see. This is the fourth time in program history the Bobcats started out 5-0, so that is a one positive thing to look at. This weekend on Saturday, they are at home playing Duquesne. Last year they played Duquesne. Duquesne handed the Bobcats their second loss of the season, beating them 64-47. So expect the Bobcats and a pretty loaded senior squad here for the Bobcats to come back and try to get revenge to keep this perfect record on the line.
So hopefully that women's team can keep it rolling forward into this weekend and over break into the new year with MAC play. We're going to go to commercial right now. Coming up, we got MAC football coverage.
Welcome back to Ohio Sports. I'm Bobby Levine. Alongside me is Ethan Graham. And for the rest of the episode, we've got a lot of football. This is the last episode here, again, right before break. So this is the last time we'll ever talk about football for the rest of the year. Last week, a huge week in the MAC over Thanksgiving break. The Western Conference had a game pretty much for the century with Toledo and Western Michigan. Last game of the season, both teams on the line to get that Western Conference crown. Western Michigan has been perfect so far this season, and they pretty much played perfect, winning the game 55-35. What did you see out of the Broncos?
Yeah, the Broncos, really a great team. We'll talk about them more in the next block. They were 1-11 in 2013, all the way to 12-0, an undefeated regular season in 2016. Score was close at times for Western Michigan, but they never trailed. Asante Brown intercepted Toledo's Logan Woodside on the very first play from scrimmage, really got the tempo going for the Broncos earlier. Wide receiver Corey Davis broke the career record in receiving yards, not just for Western Michigan, but for all of FBS college football. He's at 5,061 heading into the MAC championship game with the Bobcats. And Zach Terrell, really what the model quarterback for what you look for in the Mid-American Conference, or really any conference in college football. 19 of 25, 196 yards, going out there, throwing up those numbers like it's nothing. Jamari Bogan, 31 carries, 198 yards, and a touchdown. So Western certainly went more run-heavy in that game, and it worked.
Yeah, we're going to have to look out, though, because obviously Western is now representing the MAC out of the Western Conference. They've allowed teams 4 times a season to put up more than 30 points. We'll talk about that more next block here. Moving forward, though, there was another game going on in the Eastern. Miami of Ohio. They started things off this season horribly, starting the season 0-6. They're the first team ever in NCAA history to come back and win the next 6 games. They're now bowl eligible. They ended up surprising Ball State, winning 21-20. What did you see out of that game?
Yeah, it was certainly a great turnaround for Miami after starting 0-6, obviously finishing up with 6 straight wins. They needed some heroics. Gus Ragland took it all the way down to the last couple minutes of the fourth quarter, passed to Sam Shiso with 5 minutes and 44 seconds left in the game to put Miami up 21-20. Gus Ragland, who came in at midseason, started 6 games, obviously went 6-0, 26 for 35, 380 yards and 3 touchdowns. And ever since he's taken over that starting job, he's had a great stat line. 6-0 as a starter, obviously, 15 touchdowns, no interceptions, 1,274 yards, completing 62% of his passes, also ran for 2 touchdowns. He will be a junior next year, so he has 2 years of eligibility left. You really look at Miami, the way they started the season, really no one gave them a shot. And really halfway through the season, no one was still giving them a shot because they're 0-6. But they really turned it around. 6-6 might be an interesting program to look at moving forward in the MAC.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone had them even on the radar. You got to realize, I mean, starting 0-2 in college football, you put yourself in a huge hole.
Absolutely.
0-6 is another even sector, another whole different species in college football. Win 6 in a row like that.
No, it's unheard of. It's never happened.
They rushed the field. It's probably the first time they rushed the field since beating Ohio my freshman year when Ohio started 7-0 and was ranked. A couple other stats from that game. Alonzo Smith had 11 carries, 84 yards rushing. Rakeem Williams, 6 receptions, 145 yards receiving, and 2 touchdowns. So good job from them. But the game that mattered the most was here in Athens against Akron. The Ohio Bobcats needed a win to control their own destiny, and they got it done. Wasn't the prettiest game, but they won the final score 9-3. This was the only game in college football this season where both teams combined to score 0 touchdowns. What did you see out of the Bobcats this last week?
Yeah, you said it wasn't a pretty game. I think you might not be exaggerating a whole lot. It was an absolute slugfest. It was one of a few ugly games that Ohio has played, and you really see games like Kent State, Miami. They get into this defensive style of game. There's not a lot going on offense for either team. Ohio ended up with 299 yards. Quentin Maxwell ended up with 159 yards. Malik Irons, 54. Dorian Brown, 47 yards rushing. Jordan Reed led the Bobcats in receiving. You don't usually see that. It's usually Sebastian Smith hauling in a majority of the targets and yards with 5 catches for 62 yards. And Louis Zervos has continued to be one of the best kickers in college football this year. Came in clutch for the Bobcats, 3 of 3, hit from a long of 49 yards. The MAC East Player of the Week for the 4th time this season. The last player to do that was also another Ohio kicker. Matt Weller did it in 2012. And Zervos, second in the country with 25 field goals. And now Ohio will try and win their first MAC championship since 1968 when they did so under head coach Bill Hess and were quarterbacked by Cleve Bryant. They ended up winning a bowl game that year, 49-42 over Richmond in Tangerine Bowl.
Well, congrats to them on that one. Now this week, as you said, there's been a lot of poorly played games by Ohio. You named a couple of them off.
Right.
They were under the helm there with the same quarterback. And now we're looking at Quentin Maxwell taking over. Do you think Greg Whittam's a better fit for the Bobcats?
Well, it depends. Really, Western Michigan can do anything on defense. They can really blitz. They can come from all angles. They can drop back into coverage. Ohio obviously has struggled having quarterbacks who can throw the deep ball this year. They have both Quentin Maxwell and Greg Windham are decent at running. But maybe, this is really do or die for the Bobcats. You don't really know when the next time you're going to make it back to a MAC championship is. Hopefully it's next year, but you never know. I mean, if Quentin Maxwell comes out and struggles, you have to think about putting in Greg Windham, especially if he's healthy. I know he's having some problems with his legs. But, I mean, if Wyndham's healthy and Maxwell starts out slow, maybe has 3 punts, maybe turns the ball over, puts the ball on the ground, you got to think about putting Windham in.
No, absolutely. I'm agreeing with you there. But if somehow Quentin Maxwell comes out and has the game of his career, this could be a huge, huge momentum booster from this young kid moving forward in his Ohio Bobcat young career. Another couple stats there. The defense is going to be key this week. We'll talk about that next block a little bit. Quentin Poling had 9 solo tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. Also, Blair Brown had 9 tackles, 1 tackle for loss as well. So the Bobcats defense is going to have to play on their heads once again. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to have the preview of Ohio University taking on Western Michigan for the MAC championship. Welcome back to Ohio Sports Zone. I'm Bobby Levine. Alongside me is Ethan Graham. Now let's talk about the championship game. All Mid-American fans are watching for this weekend, including Barstool Sports. I know you follow them on Twitter. They've been all over it. Love the Mid-American Conference. The number 17 Western Michigan, the new college football rankings, need to win this game to get a very nice BCS bowl game. They're sitting at 12-0, 8-0 in the MAC. Ohio University is 8-4 and 6-2 in the MAC. Struggling of late on offense. How are we going to beat them, as in Western Michigan, and stop their quarterback, Zach Terrell?
Well, Western Michigan, like you said, is centered around their quarterback, Zach Terrell, who's having an outstanding season statistically. 30 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's thrown for 3,086 yards as well as 6 touchdowns on the ground. He's the active FBS leader in career touchdowns with 93. Ohio's going to have to win the trenches this week. They're going to have to hit Zach Terrell early and often. They're really going to have to get to him mentally. Ohio is 8th in the country with 41 sacks, so they've proven they can get in the backfield. They've been struggling with that lately. They're really going to have to return to that part of their game. Terrell Basham, Cleon Aloisi, we talk about them every week, but obviously they're going to have to continue to have huge games if Ohio has a chance here on Friday. Guys like Kurt Lasik, who don't play as many snaps, Kevin Robbins, Tom Strobel, also going to have to contribute. It's really going to have to be a team effort on both sides of the ball this week, but particularly defense. The other thing they're going to have to do is contain Corey Davis, Jarvian Franklin. Western's going to score points. We know they're going to score points. They average 44 points a game. It's going to happen. But what you can do is maybe force some turnovers, and it's how do you respond to those points.
Absolutely. It hasn't been in a long time where Western Michigan's been punched in the mouth. It matters how the team's going to react to that. Obviously, like you said, Terrell Basham's going to have to get after Zach Terrell. Also, he's got 71.7 completion percentage. The guy does not miss his targets. He's got a great receiver in Corey Davis. He's got over 12,000 receiving yards, 83 receptions, and 17 touchdowns. I don't know how both these guys aren't even up for the Heisman talk because they're putting up Heisman numbers right now in the MAC. For the Bobcats, though, who's going to have to step up?
Yeah, for the Bobcats, it's going to have to be a huge effort, and it's going to start in the backfield. The quarterback play has been a real problem this last half of the season. Quentin Maxwell, Greg Wyndham, both switching off starts sometimes. Both have to be more consistent. Both have to be great this week, depending on who plays. Solich may do both. He may play both. We've seen that before as a strategy out of him. And Ohio's just going to have to find a way on offense. They haven't looked the same the past 2 weeks. They have to find a way to get Sebastian Smith the ball. He only has 7 catches in the last 2 games. Obviously, he's a very dynamic wide receiver. Makes a lot of spectacular catches. Probably going to get some looks at the next level. And the secondary is going to have to play one of their best games of their careers. Zach Terrell, obviously, 30 touchdowns, 1 interception. Very, very careful with the football. They're going to have to get some tips, some sort of luck, some good bounces if they have a chance of winning this game.
Absolutely agreeing with you 100% in that area. Another key area the Ohio Bobcats need to win is probably the ground game. Dorian Brown has 794 rushing yards. He's averaging 5.7, which is more than Javarion Franklin, who's averaging 5.5 rushes per attempt. The Bobcats, on the ground, defense as a whole need to step up. But one area where the Bobcats need to win in this game.
Yeah, it's the turnover margin. Western Michigan is plus 18 in turnover margin. They didn't turn the ball over this year until their 7th game. That is mind-boggling. Wow. Western Michigan is dominating MAC opponents this year, winning by an average of 27 points. They really know what they're doing, really have the MAC style of football carved out. They've won 14 in a row. Their last loss was November 18th at Northern Illinois. This is November 18th of last year, of course. They had a 5-point lead going into the 4th quarter, but blew that lead. They gave up 2 touchdowns in the 4th, and you know what? That was the last time they lost a turnover battle. The last time that Western lost a turnover battle. Zach Terrell still threw for 331. So like I said, you know he's going to get some points. You know he's going to get some yards. They're going to move the ball, but how do you respond to that? They're going to need some huge turnovers. If they want to win this game or even have a chance.
They always say winning a game of football is winning a game of inches. I always say winning the turnover battle and winning special teams. You make your kicks, make sure you pin them back and punts. Field position is always key to that. The spread right now for this game is sitting at 18.5 points in favor of Western Michigan. In my opinion, it is mind-boggling. If the Browns played the Alabama Crimson Tide, that's a pro against a college team, the spread would be 24 points. So 6-point difference there with Ohio Bobcats at 18.5 dogs. Can the Bobcats pull off an upset for the century and the perfect season for Western Michigan, or do they fall and Western Michigan gets a nice bowl game?
Well, it would certainly be huge for this program, huge national recognition for the Bobcats if they could pull it out. They're going to have to play their best game of the season by far. They're going to have to be perfect on some aspects of the ball. If I'm being honest with you, I don't really see it getting done, but I do see Ohio covering that spread, probably being close in the second half. maybe something like 24-13 or 31-20. I see the Bobcats staying close, but Western Michigan just pulling away at the end. Zach Terrell, obviously very talented. Jarvian Franklin, Corey Davis. The list of weapons just goes on. And they have a great defense. Robert Spillane at linebacker is a huge player in the MAC. So this is Western Michigan's season. They know what this game means. PJ Fleck is an absolutely outstanding motivator, and there's really no reason to think, at least on paper, that Western Michigan will not win this game. But you don't play games on paper. You play games on grass. So we'll see what happens.
I'm agree with you there, but I think, being a homer, I think the Bobcats are going to surprise a lot of people. I talked to Sebastian Smith earlier this week. He said the key to winning this game is getting the offense to move the ball. Now, in my opinion, if Quentin Maxwell does not move the ball well in the first couple of drives, you switch your quarterback out, you put in Greg Wyndham, and then you move on from there. It all starts with the defense there. There's going to be a couple big guys that are seniors, Blair Brown especially, Quentin Poling, who've been lockdown linebackers for this Bobcat program the last 4 or 5 years. This is their last big game. I realize the bowl game's huge, but to end a perfect record this late in the season against, which could be an upcoming rivalry, the Bobcats can stay hot with Western Michigan. You know these guys are going for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Bobcats can improve their bowl situation tremendously. I mean, if you're playing on this defense or on offense, this is the game to win. I realize the bowl game, like I said, is great. You got to win this game.
Oh, this is their biggest game of the season. This is their biggest game in years.
Absolutely. I think the Bobcats surprise a lot of people and put this out there. I think they win this game. If they keep the Broncos under 30 points, I think the Bobcats can somehow win this game. We're going to look at the rest of the college football world right after this on Ohio Sports Zone.
Welcome back on Ohio Sports Zone. Ethan Graham with Bobby Levine. Just like every week, Bobby, we're going to talk the rest of college football. Obviously, a very interesting week. Last Saturday, last Friday, there's a lot of games going on. Who's your Final Four right now?
All right, so let's go over the college football playoff Final Four right now as we speak. As it stands, the official Final Four is Alabama 1, Ohio State 2, Clemson 3, Washington 4, and just on the outside is Michigan and Wisconsin at 5 and 6. This is before the championship week is being played this upcoming weekend. My Final Four is a little different. I've got Alabama 1, Ohio State 2. I have Clemson 3, so the same 3 as them. It's switched here at the 4 and 5. I have Michigan in my Final Four of what they did to Ohio State in Columbus. I think those 2 losses to at Iowa and at Ohio State are a lot better resume as a whole than the entire resume that Washington has. The Washington non-conference schedule is, in my opinion, worse than Baylor the last year where they played absolutely nobody. They're one of the worst non-conference schedules with Rutgers, Portland State, and Idaho. There's nobody good on that schedule. So I have Washington being on the outside just for that fact. They play Colorado this week. We'll talk about that later. But in my opinion, with that resume, you cannot have them ahead of Michigan in the Big Ten, which being the best conference this year. What about your Final Four?
Yeah, my Final Four is a little different. I have Alabama, number 1. I have Clemson, number 2. I have Ohio State, 3. I have Washington, 4. I really, like you said, they've obviously not really played anyone outside of the conference, but they've taken care of business inside their conference. Other than USC, who's obviously a very good team. They look like one of the hottest teams in college football right now. So I see things a little differently. For Washington, I think they will get in. Obviously, a lot depends on this game on Friday night when they play Washington at Levi Stadium, the home of the 49ers. Washington is a 7.5-point favorite. Bobby, what are your thoughts on this game?
They're playing Utah, actually, not Washington. But yes, Washington is playing Utah. In my opinion, I think Utah, and I just mean Colorado. I'm way off there. Colorado is playing Washington. I think Colorado's going to surprise a lot of people. This is their first winning season in over 10 years. The Buffs are going to come out, try to kick some butt. I mean, they're playing for a whole program right now. This is their first time being even relevant in the college football world in a long time. I know they had a winning season 10 years ago, going like 7-5, but they haven't been predominantly good since the early 90s when they had Cordell Stewart winning national championships back then. I think the Buffs surprise a lot of people. Washington loses, get kicked off. I think the Buffs represent the Pac-12 in the Rose Bowl, and we go from there. What about you?
Yeah, I see that game ending completely differently. I think Washington and Jake Browning, very potent offense. They're going to go in there and throw up a lot of points. I like Washington to blow out Colorado. and end up in the college football playoff, probably in the 4th spot. Moving on, Clemson, another college football team that we both view in our Final Four, and I'm sure most other people do, is -10 against Virginia Tech in the ACC championship game. Bobby, do you smell an upset here?
It's going to be tough, but what a turn of events a year can do for a team. Virginia Tech played Ohio State the last 2 years. Ohio State was getting ragged on by how poorly their non-conference and their whole schedule is as a whole. Now, Virginia Tech is representing the ACC in the ACC championship game. So we'll move on from there. I think Clemson, Deshaun Watson has an outside chance of winning that Heisman Trophy after the last 2 weeks. And Lamar Jackson has put up losses for Louisville. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a close game until the 4th quarter. No defense. It's going to be a very high-scoring game. I think the spread actually is a little closer than 10 toward the end of the game. It could be an 8 or a touchdown. Last year, North Carolina lost to Clemson by a total of 7 points in the ACC championship game. It's going to be hot. It's going to be in Orlando. We'll see what happens, but I think Clemson will win and end up securing that 2 seed and end up playing Ohio State in the first round of the college football playoff.
Yeah, obviously Virginia Tech struggles in big games, but Clemson has shown they're vulnerable this year. Really, we're looking at a very different scenario of Pitt, those would be Clemson or Penn State. Things would be very interesting in terms of the college football landscape. Moving on to Penn State, they have Wisconsin in the Big Ten Championship coming up. Bobby, what are your thoughts on that game?
It's going to be interesting. This game has got a lot of attention around the college football playoff world. Last year it was between Iowa and Michigan State. It was a 4 and 5 seed. This year it's a 6 and 7. In my opinion, the 2 best teams in the Big Ten are not playing right now in the Big Ten Championship in Ohio State and Michigan. Penn State got very lucky in the tiebreaker over Ohio State. Michigan fell off the map there at the very end of the college football season. I think Wisconsin beats up Penn State. It's going to be surprising if Penn State can keep up. I think the defense for Wisconsin is the best they've seen in a long time. And then if that happens and Washington struggles against Colorado, I think I can see Wisconsin jumping not only Michigan, but end up jumping Washington and being in that Final Four. I want the college football player to have the best 4 teams. Last year, they ended up putting Michigan State in because they won the Big Ten Championship. Michigan State got pulverized by Alabama. I think Wisconsin or Michigan has a way better chance of playing against Alabama than Washington does.
Yeah, you really look at that Michigan State game last year. Maybe that's something the committee looks at this year, realizing, okay, we don't have to automatically put a Big Ten champion in or whatever champion in. This year it's Big Ten. They obviously look like the best conference in college football, but maybe they don't put the champion in this year. Moving forward, Penn State, obviously they lost to Pitt. Pitt really screwed things up here. And with the Ohio State loss, you look at that field goal, that questionable pass interference call. If Ohio State wins that game, there's no question they're a lock right now, maybe 1 or 2.
Well, I still think Ohio State is a lock regardless, just because their resume is unbelievable. You have a win at Oklahoma earlier in the year. Oklahoma's sitting at top 10 right now. Then you got wins on the road at Wisconsin, home against Nebraska, who's top 10 at the time, and then obviously Michigan this last week. But like you said, they don't think the committee realized they put the right team in. Ohio State was so senior loaded last year, and they still slipped up that 1 game against Michigan State. They didn't put the right team in. I think Oklahoma should have slid out, and Ohio State could have played Alabama in that first round game and gave possibly a better matchup between Clemson and Michigan State. Regardless, this year I think the committee's going to get it right. A lot of Penn State fans are not happy right now with what happened, but when you lose to Pittsburgh early on like that, you can't say you're a dominant team. Ohio State obviously slipped up at Penn State, Happy Valley at night, a whiteout, very tough conditions. It was sleeting the whole time. We'll see. I think Ohio State's a lock. I think Alabama's a lock, and I think if Clemson wins, they're a lock. So the 4 seed again will be up in the air.
All right, Bobby, real quick. We're getting down to it's the end of the college football season. National championship winner over who?
I don't even want to say that because I'm a diehard Ohio State fan. I want to say Alabama and Ohio State will play. We'll let that play out because Urban Meyer and Nick Saban will have a heated rivalry going on back when Urban was at University of Florida down in Gainesville. But this is the last week before Christmas break. We're going to be back all next semester. We're going to have a couple new hosts. I know that for a fact. We got Jackson Schroeder, who's been on my podcast this entire semester. I'm excited for that. I want to give a huge shout out to everyone that's been here the entire week. Nate Sexier. We got Bettine Hozichik and Blake Hardesty coming up every time. And then obviously you have Aaron Talley. But absolutely have a wonderful break. Hopefully you guys eat a lot, share some nice family times, and enjoy the holidays. So happy holidays from here, everyone on Ohio Sports Zone, and Happy New Year. See you next semester.